Hi there. Looks like some people are joining us right now, and so I just wanted to kind of give everyone the opportunity. Um, I'm Cassidy Russell. I'm one of the associate attorneys here at Merhab Robinson and Clarkson, and I just wanted to say hello first off, and second, thank you for joining us for our webinar on back to school planning right now. This is going to go into the 3 estate planning documents your college-age child needs and why. Of course, estate planning is a little bit of a misnomer, and that not everyone has an estate, as we would call it. Very commonly, we look at this and think, I don't have an estate. Why do I need something like that? And I just want to help people to understand that as an adult comes with certain responsibilities. It also comes with certain things that we just have to get in place and make sure are in place for our kids so that we can help them and protect them in the best ways possible. So, I don't know if I should wait or just kind of go with it as we do here. I don't see additional people joining currently, so I'll just go ahead and get started. All right. It's a little bit about myself. I've been practicing for over 11 years now, and mostly in the trusts and estates and area of law. I do a lot of planning for people, helping them set up their estate plans and get them in place for the day that comes that they need them. I enjoy working with my teenagers and young adults. I have a lot of fun with them. I like to think I'm young, and so I can relate to them. I don't know that I am all that young anymore, but I enjoy speaking with young people about their estate plans and what they need to have in place as well. Um, I do a lot of trust administration, which is not my favorite, but also probate and conservatorships as well. So it's kind of a little bit about me. I live locally and have practiced in Orange County my entire career pretty much. So I'll keep going here. Um, Turning 18 is a major milestone for your children, and it's a birthday to celebrate. It's fun things coming. It's potentially graduating high school, starting college, maybe a first job, hopefully, right? Um, or even moving away from home. At 18, I definitely moved away from home and I went off to college. I was only in San Diego, so I wasn't that far away. But I went off to college at what could have been a very large party school, but I was there for the academics and I was going to be an adult. And I moved out of my family's home for the first time in my life. And it came with it a new sense of freedom and also a bit of responsibility that I maybe wasn't prepared for. And so, in talking about milestones for your child turning 18, it's something to be celebrated and also is something to be planned for. Very commonly, parents call within a week or two of their kids turning 18, knowing that these documents and this conversation is something that we need to have. All right. Up until your child turns 18 years old, all decisions about their legal activities, their finances, where they go to school, all of those things have been decided by you. My 4-year-old definitely has mommy in charge and daddy in charge of all of his decision making, or I think we might just eat candy and cotton candy and chocolate for dinner most days. Those things are very exciting to young people, my son especially. But I also, and all of you also, get to choose which doctor they see, the course of medical treatment most of the time, where they live, where they go to school. Even on days I get told I don't want to go to school. Well, unfortunately, you're going to school today, just as I'm going to work. And we have that conversation quite regularly. Um, and also how to manage their money. Under the age of 18, you're not legally allowed to manage money. So you might have your college savings account or a joint account with mom and dad, things like that. But once your child turns 18, they have certain rights, and this changes. And so maybe mom and dad won't be as included in some of the decision making that you were before. And the turn of the hour can change their legal and financial responsibilities and your ability to access those things as well. So while turning 18 is a milestone, it's also the turning of the time for when you can be involved and how do we go about navigating that part of our child's life. All right, we're 18, we're now legally our own person. It's a wonderful feeling. No one can tell me what to do anymore. They now have the right to choose which doctor they see or don't see. Because of course some of us don't prefer to go to the doctor and things like that. Um, who can access their medical information? Your child may not be willing to have you in their doctor's appointments any longer. Um, their doctor is now legally not allowed to share information with you. They get to decide where they live and go to school. I moved out into a dorm room and went to college, and that was on me. How to invest and manage their money. Whether that's a good or bad thing is yet to be seen for some of our teenagers. Ideally speaking, they've learned some of the financial responsibility that we've had and management of money, and hopefully aren't subject to the influence of other people or to, I don't know, exciting things that they would want to spend their money on. Of course, we want to make sure that we do our best in this situation. And how do we do that is really where I want to go from here. Because what if they do need help? Like I said, that passing of the hour can change a child to an adult. And I use the term adult loosely because, of course, we don't look at teenagers as much of adults at that time. But in the eyes of the law, they are an adult. And they may need help navigating that new freedom. One of the rules and responsibilities I had as I went off to college was to promise my family I wouldn't take a party bus to Mexico. And I laugh about that now because I still don't think I would do that, but it was a promise I had to make when I went to San Diego because it was relatively dangerous. And there were some travel advisories and different things going on at that time that made it an irresponsible choice. And while I made that choice, some of my classmates and my dorm mates didn't, and they felt the ramifications of that. So we had people have their items stolen. They were harassed by police in different scenarios. They were not being responsible with their newfound freedom. And so we want to talk to our young adults about selecting a trusted person. Who is that person? It might be mom and dad, and that's wonderful. It might not be. It might be an aunt or an uncle or an older cousin or something like that. It doesn't have to be mom and dad. Very commonly, when mom and dad come to me, I am very much encouraged to say, would your mom and dad be the people you would want to help you manage money or make medical decisions, things like that. But also, we should have legally binding documents that grant that authority. Mom and dad don't automatically have that authority any longer once you turn 18. Okay, so let's talk about what important tools we should consider when our child turns 18. Financial power of attorney. Now, this is one of the cornerstone documents of an estate plan and something that anyone over the age of 18 should have in place. Okay. This allows a young adult or just an adult in general to choose that trusted person that they would want in charge to manage legal and financial decisions if they're ever unable to do so. It can be limited. It can restrict them to only certain things that they're allowed to manage for our young adults, or it can be general, meaning they could manage all the legal and financial decisions for the young adult. And then it also dictates when this power is effective. Okay. We have them sometimes that are immediate, meaning that it's effective immediately upon the signature and notarization of the document, or it could be what we call a springing financial power of attorney. And what that looks like is a power that is not given to the trusted person until an instance of incapacity occurs. And usually that's defined within the document. One, what incapacity is, the inability to manage your legal and financial affairs. Two, and how is it determined? Okay, so commonly we'll see two doctors' letters, a court, different things like that that can be triggers for the springing power of attorney to take effect. For our young adults, very commonly, what I would actually recommend is an immediate financial power of attorney. If mom and dad are already helping with the finances, your kids are still on your payroll, you're funding their college life, then they're probably going to need you to help them manage money now rather than waiting for a period of incapacity. Okay. And then the other thing we want to make sure is that it's durable, that it's not affected when or if that person that executes this document subsequently becomes incapacitated. It doesn't change just because of that. It can continue on for their entire lifetime. A financial power of attorney is only effective during lifetime. And very commonly, I have people that will say, "Oh, I have my mom's power of attorney, but mom already passed away." I'm like, "No, that is no longer effective after someone passes away. So only during someone's lifetime." Okay. All right. Some of the benefits of having a power of attorney is that young adult can authorize an additional person to help them manage their finances. I don't know about you, but at 18, I really didn't want to be in charge of my own money. It sounded a little scary to me. I was worried that I would either mismanage it or lose it somehow. I don't know. With online banking and things, I was just a little too worried for my own good that I probably could have benefited from having someone else to keep an eye on things, watch for fraudulent charges, different things like that. It can be helpful if you're going away to college or traveling away from home. One of the things that I experienced personally is I studied abroad in another country. And while my grandmother was quite helpful and decided to send some money my way, it was actually quite difficult for her to do it because they wouldn't give her any information about my banking when she decided she was going to do this. And I didn't know she was going to give me money at the time. But luckily, when she went to the bank, she knew which bank I banked at. I was the only one in their entire network of customers that had my name. And so she was able to deposit money to that account, even though they would not give her information about my account balance or anything else. She was just able to put money in there. But I mean, that's probably not the case that my name is the only one in their system any longer. And it would be quite difficult for her to find out what account to even put the money in the first place. So, someone with a financial power of attorney can then have access and then be able to provide financial assistance if needed as well. And going off to college, being away from home, sometimes we need a little extra help just in and of itself. All right, let's talk about healthcare and how that gets a little interesting when we turn 18 as well. So, an advanced healthcare directive allows your young adult to appoint someone to communicate their medical wishes on their behalf and make medical decisions for them when they either can't communicate or don't have the capacity to understand. Once a young adult turns 18, uh, you are no longer entitled to their medical information. You are protected under HIPAA, and their doctor's office is not allowed to release test results. I've had the experience of them not being willing to share a referral that they gave in a medical appointment, even though I was with the other person in the initial appointment. And they have to be careful about what they actually release about another person because they can get fined under HIPAA if they violate the terms of that information. Now, if you have any questions along the way, I do want to encourage you to put things into the chat just so that we can hopefully answer those along the way. I do see someone with their hand raised, just so you know, and I do see that. But if you could drop your question into the chat, I'm happy to get to those at the end of the presentation as well, okay? Um, so the other thing about being an adult is there's some worrisome circumstances that can arise. If your kid goes off to college and they're out having a wonderful time being a college student, there's still the possibility that they get in an accident. And the only reason you find out is that their friends call them to tell you that there was an accident and your child went to the hospital. Unfortunately, what I have seen happen is that their friends don't know which hospital they went to. I don't know if you've ever been in an ambulance or anything like that, but commonly when you call an ambulance, they are on the phone with the nearby hospitals that could treat the type of injury or health problem that the person is experiencing to find out if they have available doctors and beds for treating that patient that would be coming to them if they're accepting patients, things like that. So, in doing so, they sometimes don't know which hospital they are going to until they get on the road. And so their friends that may have been nearby while an accident occurred may not have any idea what hospital your child is going to. So the panic sets in that our child is off to the hospital, we're nowhere nearby, and we have no clue which hospital they're going to or what the gravity of their injuries are. So we get on the phone. We're panicked. We're calling local hospitals near their college to try and figure out where they may be. The reality is that none of those hospitals have to or might even share with you that they're treating your child at that hospital. That's what HIPAA does. Once you're 18, you have those privacy rights for your medical information, and they do not have to, and actually may sometimes feel that they cannot share that they are treating your child at their hospital. So, we want these documents in place to be able to, one, appoint that trusted person to make those decisions on your behalf, but two, be able to have access and communication with those doctors as well. The other thing that an advanced healthcare directive does is it allows your young adult to convey their wishes about end of life decisions. Nobody wants to talk about this. I know this from experience. I talk about death and dying every day. Um, it's not easy, and it is a very emotional thing to talk about, but we need to communicate our wishes in some way if we do care about whether or not we would want artificial respiration, a ventilation tube, a feeding tube, artificial hydration, things like that that we may have to live with throughout our entire life. And I know young people very commonly think they're invincible. And unfortunately, none of us are. Accidents happen. And we see the other side of it where people didn't have the proper planning in place and they wound up not causing, but having additional stress and delays and money spent to try and get the right people in place to take care of them in these times of need. Okay? All right. The benefits of an advanced healthcare directive is it allows a hospital to quickly determine who can make a decision for you if you're unable to do so for yourself. Like I said, it can save time and money for court processes that could be delayed or just hard to obtain as a person going through this emergency on the outside. So, as a parent, um, one of the things that we have to sometimes pursue is what's called a conservatorship. And that's the process you go through to have someone appointed to either manage your legal and financial affairs or your medical decisions if you have not put the proper documents in place to do so. And one of those being the Advanced Healthcare Directive. And I can tell you from professional experience that the courts are very commonly delayed or overburdened with additional cases that it will take substantial time to have someone appointed on your behalf to make decisions if you haven't done this through your own accord. Okay. There are some procedures that you can use in the court system to expedite or make those hearings come faster. But again, it just costs more time and money on your part to try and get those things in place. Okay. This document also provides the ability to keep our information private. When we file documents in the probate court, they're very commonly a part of the public record. And I don't know about you, but I don't personally want either my financials or my medical information to be potentially public record. Both of those things kind of give me the heebie-jeebies. I wouldn't want other people to be able to read about my injuries or my circumstances and what assistance with daily living that I would need. So, um, and ultimately, the other benefit is that it can allow your agent some ease in making difficult decisions for someone. No one wants to be the person named on someone's healthcare directive that actually has to act. I unfortunately have been that person. Um, There are certain circumstances in which someone may become ill and be able to unable to communicate. I share personal stories a lot with my clients, and I think it helps them to understand some of the situations in which these documents would be beneficial. And I also like to explain that you're not the only one that potentially your family members don't have these documents in place. So, I'll tell you a little story here. My mom is legally blind, and so getting her to do documents sometimes is a little more complicated in that one, would have to drive her to a notary, and two, um, get her to actually do it. And so, even in the situation in which I had already prepared documents for her to be able to have someone appointed to make medical decisions for her, um, she became ill and had not executed those documents and was unable to communicate her wishes, was unable to um, have memory, know who was in the room, understand what was happening. And ultimately, because our family agreed, the doctors went ahead with our permission to sedate her and put her in a medically induced coma to do testing and all these different things. And I unfortunately have had the situation in which I had to decide whether or not to provide for artificial nutrition and respiration for my own parent. And it's a scary and not fun circumstance. No one wants to have to make that decision. And no matter what decision you make, you're always going to second guess yourself. At least with an advanced healthcare directive, you have some guidance from the person as to what they would or wouldn't want. Okay. I will tell you that my mom is fine. I'm fairly certain she's trying to text message me during this presentation. She still rides a horse and is very healthy otherwise, but those circumstances can be a reason in which an advanced healthcare directive would have been helpful because I would have known her wishes better. I will say now she also has finally executed those documents, so that's good too. Okay. Let's talk about what goes along with a healthcare directive. Like I said earlier, HIPAA is a federal law that provides some privacy rights with your medical information. So once you turn 18, you are subject to the rules under HIPAA, and it doesn't allow others to access your confidential and protected medical information. Okay. A HIPAA authorization allows you to put people on the list for who you would be okay with checking in with your doctor, asking questions about your procedure that you had or potential prognosis, and they're allowed then to reveal that information to those listed on that document. Okay. It is a federal law. So even if your kid is in another state away at college, this should still be sufficient for getting access. And this would allow a hospital also to tell you if they're treating your child in that circumstance that I explained earlier. Okay. Benefits of a HIPAA allows your loved ones to be authorized to access medical information. It can alleviate some tension. So maybe your person that is on your healthcare directive has someone that thinks they should have been the one appointed to make the decision. Okay, this happens. But the young adult gets to pick who they think would make medical decisions on their behalf in the best way possible and according to what their wishes are. And it might not be you. But being on the HIPAA authorization would allow you to get information, at least know how they're doing, what treatment is being made, and what prognosis is likely from the current illness or injury. And I think that eases a lot of tension where they feel like they can go directly to the source for that information. No one has to play telephone at that moment, and they can be informed about your care. Okay. And also, it can help you be informed if your child is still on your health insurance. So it will allow you more than just pay the premium. It will allow you to see what is being spent and for what purpose through your health insurance. I know that if they're on your health insurance and 18, usually all you get is the bill. You don't get to see what they're charging you for. And that can be really hard when you're paying for someone else's health insurance. So just something to think about when it comes to uh, dealing with your child's medical care when they're 18. Okay. Now, this is a little outside the scope of those three documents that everyone over the age of 18 needs. And this has to do with going off to school or to college and things like that. I don't know if any of you have heard about FERPA, but that is a law related to your students' education records. And while our kids are in school, we get to see their progress report. What are their grades? Do they have Saturday school? All of those different kinds of things that can come up during their educational journey. And under federal law, there is something called FERPA. It's Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. And what that means is that even if you're paying your child's tuition, you still cannot call and ask about their grades or what their schedule of classes are, or even get a copy of their transcripts for them. So, this provides a little frustration for some of the parents I talk to about what they would like to know about when they're paying for their child's tuition. Okay. And of course, your kid can give you a look through their class portal to see how they're doing and what their assignments are and things like that, but they don't have to. And if they're halfway across the country or even all the way across the country, your access is even that much more limited. So, what I want to tell you about is something called a FERPA release. Okay. Um, it can be quite frustrating to be the one in charge of the payment and not have any control here. So, most colleges provide something called a FERPA authorization or release, and that would allow you to have access to their educational information, their schedule, their grades, who their teachers are, if they have missing assignments, all of those things. Not that a professor is going to want to talk to you, but it does allow you to talk to their registrar about dropping classes and all of those kinds of things. See if they've missed the drop deadline, all of those kinds of things. All right. And I will say this, some schools have a PDF or a paper form that you have to fill out and send in. Your student actually has to fill out and send in. Others have a walkthrough on their website for through their student portal where they can log in and authorize someone to have access under FERPA rules. I know Cal State Fullerton specifically does that, and UNLV as well, University of Nevada, Las Vegas. But they should have an alternative PDF or printable form as well for you for those that aren't quite as tech savvy as well. Okay. This allows them to designate who the school can communicate with, and hopefully will provide you some information that you would otherwise not be entitled to receive. Okay. All right. So what's next? How do we get our kids to do this? My first guiding light there is very commonly my parents will just make the appointment for their kids and say, "Here, I made you appointment. Get on Zoom at this time." Or they will make the appointment and sit down at the kitchen table and we'll Zoom together. That is very commonly the way we do things. We can do this over the phone or Zoom or in our office. I personally think it's a great time for your young adult to come to our office. It's a new experience. I tend to think I'm not that scary, and no one in our office is either. And we're here to talk with them about the documents that we're thinking might be important at their age and with their assets. Maybe they need more in place than just these foundational documents because they have some money that they've saved up from their sticker making business that they started when they were 12, or I have a couple of clients that their kids designed clothing at a young age and have taken off in the clothing world, or, maybe they're a young influencer on social media. I don't know. But if they have their own assets, there's probably more than this that they would need in place. But at a minimum, they should have this conversation to just help decide whether or not they want to put these documents in place. And I would encourage anyone over the age of 18, with or without money in the bank, to do these things so that you have someone in place to make these decisions on your behalf. Um, the other thing about having to go through a court process to have this effectuated is that sometimes the person that you wouldn't want making decisions for you is the person that looks best on paper for the court to appoint and make those decisions on your behalf for you. Um, I uh, I know certain dynamics in families are unique, and we all have the people that we do or don't get along with, or that we think their maybe head is in the clouds when it comes to decision making, or however you want to put it. But if we allow the court process to be a part of our decision making instead of doing it for ourselves, it could wind up with a result that we don't like or wouldn't have chosen for ourselves. So, scheduling a consultation to help your family put these in the right place would be the next step. And we can do it virtual or in person. And I have all of our contact information there on the screen for you. The next thing I would like to jump into is if there are any questions. There is a chat function, and there is also um, a raise your hand function and questions and things like that that you can do. And I'm happy to answer those questions for you. Um, my little guy is a little young to put these documents in place, but I do think about them, and I know that we want to be mindful of our young adults and the decisions that they make going forward and be a resource to them. So, all right, let's see. Can we get the slides for this presentation? Oh, you said it's wonderful. Thank you. I get very nervous doing these, so I'm excited when you guys enjoy the presentations, and we are happy to send out the presentation. Because you have registered for this presentation, we will send you a link where you can have access to the recording and the slides there as well. Should be over the next couple of days that that would go out to you. All right. Okay. All right. The next question that I see has to do with what if my child gets married and these documents are in place? Okay. So, very commonly, when our young adults come in to execute these documents and appoint mom and dad and then potentially a sibling as their decision makers, they say, okay, when should I update this? Or what if I get married? And we have a conversation surrounding we should always have these documents in place, but if you want to change them, what I would do is just do a new one. It basically revokes the old one and puts a new one in place so that you always have someone named as your agent. And ultimately, my young adults don't usually end up changing these documents until they do get married. And then they'll potentially put their spouse in the primary role and then their parents as the backup until our parents reach an age at which maybe they don't have the capacity to make decisions for us any longer. So that's that's how we handle that going forward. All right. If there aren't any other questions, I do also want to let you know that we, of course, have another webinar coming up next month, and our estate planning partner, Paul Clarkson, will be doing that presentation, and that one is called Who's the Boss? Choosing the right trustee for your trust. And there's a QR code there up on the screen, and if you turn on the camera on your cell phone and hold it in front of that QR code, a little yellow link will come up. You can touch that, and that will allow you to register for the presentation on August 19th. We do these during the lunch hour to hopefully allow you the ability and flexibility to come to these. And if you register for that presentation, just like this one, we will send you a link later with the presentation recording and slides as well. All right, so I'll leave that for you guys for just a second to be able to scan that QR code and register. And you're always welcome to contact our office as well if you need some assistance with that registration, or jump on our website as well. We have presentations and upcoming events and things like that on our website too. All right. So I know that was a short presentation for you guys, but This is imperative planning for our young adults and for all of us, regardless of our assets. And I encourage you to have these conversations with your young adults, and I look forward to potentially meeting them in the future. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you at our next presentation as well. Thank you so much for being here. Have a good day.